Our next speakers, we have Andrea Schramm and Kristin Vrana. They're going to be talking about lessons learned during the implementation process. So please welcome them to the stage.
Hi guys, thank you John for that introduction. So again, we get the slides up, thank you. I'm Andrea Schramm, Senior Estimator. I spent the last year and a half, or the last year minus a couple months, working with a general contractor who just spent just under a year going through implementation. So a lot of lessons learned that I want to share with you.
I'm Kristin Vrana. I'm a Senior Implementation Specialist here at Beck Technology. I've been in construction for about 18 years, mostly in Precon, but have spent some time in the field and as an owner's rep as well.
Next slide.
Oh, next.
So again, 2005 graduate, University of Cincinnati. I did co-oping with Gilbane Building Company, worked full-time for a while with Turner Construction, took a couple years off, doing my own thing for a while when my kids were little, and then worked for a couple general contractors in the Cincinnati area. So you can click on the little QR code if you want to learn more via LinkedIn. Kristin?
Sorry, we already did our intro, but 05 grad from University of Florida, and have been kicking off implementation groups at the strategic enterprise level at Beck Tech for a while now.
So what we plan to cover today is creating the implementation team,
expectations of the implementation team,
planning for your database and work breakdown structure,
and best practices after rollout.
So again, creating the implementation team, things we want to consider. Next slide. So things you're going to want to consider and think about as you roll along through implementation, or as you're getting ready to start implementation. You're going to want to assign your in-house implementation team lead. That's going to be your main point of contact for your Beck representative, your Beck technology representative, as well as the person kind of help directing and pushing things along, kind of like your project manager. So think about that and that person and the responsibilities they're going to have. Moving along, you're going to want to try to limit your team. I think your sweet spot's between 5 to 8 people. Again, I mean, we've all heard the expression, too many roosters in the hen house. So you kind of want to try to scale it back, because it's going to be really hard to continue to move forward when you've got a lot of varying opinions, and it's very hard to keep people on track, on task, and then figure out the best way to move forward. You're going to want people that come with a positive attitude. Nobody likes the negative Nancy. You need people to bring up problems or potential problems within the software, but then you also need those people that are problem solvers. And again, that goes back to, I feel like in general, a lot of us in construction are problem solvers. So shouldn't be too hard there, but make sure that when you find these problems, you've got that high energy, positive attitude, as well as someone who can solve that problem and figure out how to keep the ball rolling forward. Understand your company's end goal. That's very important. One thing I will say was great with the company that I did the implementation with was, we had very good top-down messaging. Every time I bumped into the CEO in the break room, hey, how's this coming? How's this coming? We're really excited to get to that product and see it really in full use. And, it really kind of helps keep you motivated and understand that, the goal of the company. You also want people on the team that are going to be the daily end users. So all of those people that are in it every day, using the software, this, that, and the other. You don't want the people that are basically just using it for reports, presenting to clients, and so on and so forth. So make sure that you get the people that are in it, are going to be in it every day. So that as well. Another thing, which sounds like this is obvious, but you want people who are construction literate as well as software literate. I will say, when I was put in charge of being the implementation lead, I was not very software literate. I understood software. I mean, we use it every day. Being a late Gen Xer, maybe potentially millennial, I don't know. But I mean, I'm familiar with software, but there was a lot of terminologies that my implementation specialist used, and I'm like, wait, what are you talking about? Wait, what is that again? So, hold on, back that up. And I Googled a lot. I mean, like a lot. So don't, having that variety will help a lot. Also, one other thing to think about is making sure you get people who volunteer and actually want to be on the committee, because it's not always something that everybody wants to be a part of. So Again, so just, picking people and volunteering them versus, voluntold. So, and then, and again, my last little point is the ability to commit the time. I mean, a lot of us end up getting on this team, and we still have our full-time jobs, and they don't always have the time that it takes, to really effectively roll out this new software for the company. So, Kristin, what do you want to add to that?
One of the key things that determines the success of a company during implementation is having a team leader who is a dedicated resource. Not every group has the ability to pull someone off of projects and be dedicated completely to implementation, but recognizing they shouldn't have a full workload and they treat the implementation like a project. They're a decision maker. They're able to make decisions in a timely manner and keep that schedule moving so that they can hit their end date. And then a commitment to the process. It's someone who can attend most, if not all, of the meetings and make the time to learn while we're creating all of our scope of work items together. Those groups tend to have the most success. And then a key team member that I recommend to all groups at our kickoff is having that PM, senior PM type level, someone who performs estimating tasks daily and has a vested interest in making their process more efficient, right? Their life gets easier if they try hard during implementation. And then that person also has the ability to train up and train down. So that means they're in the program every day, they're pushing the program, they know it like the back of their hand. The director type level, they might not know the software that well because they're not in there every day, but they can ask that super user for help and they can get the answers they need. And they can also train new hires and people who are a little bit more green as they come in the door. Oh, and also they have a process improvement mentality. So back to that, they have a vested interest in things going well. But somebody who's constantly looking at ways to improve workflows and use the technology that's new to them to get to where they want to be.
Yeah, I mean, just to piggy off that, I mean, it's kind of like someone said earlier today. I mean, estimators, we aren't always into change. So, I mean, again, that process improvement mentality is pretty important. So again, expectations of the implementation team. Next slide. Go ahead.
So something I also remind clients that I work with regularly is to be patient with yourself. Learning estimator is kind of like learning 2.5 programs. You've got the takeoff component, you've got the estimate creation component, but the bridge between the two is kind of like a half program. So giving yourself a little bit of grace as you learn 2.5 programs. That comes with practice. I ask my clients to practice at least a week, or at least an hour a week. Hopefully that leads to something more. But if your implementation schedule is like 30 or 40 weeks, that's 30 or 40 hours that you've been in the program, developing muscle memory, and most importantly, running into things that you need to ask questions about. So my favorite part of implementation meetings, I've got several past clients in the room, are questions. So if you're practicing, you're definitely going to have questions. You're going to come to our work sessions prepared with questions, and the meeting is tailored to exactly what you need to know versus your implementation specialist just kind of guessing and sharing what they think you want to know.
So again, I can't reiterate this enough, the time commitment involved. I mean, I know we're all busy. I know that there's less and less year after year entering the workforce, and we've got to streamline processes. However, in order to really get the full utilization out of DESTINI Estimator, I mean, you've got to put some time in up front, and I know it's hard when we're already committed to other deadlines with our regular jobs or full-time jobs, and not every company can spare or bring in someone just to help push this implementation along. So again, understand that time commitment involved. Make sure you're attending those weekly Beck Tech implementation meetings. So make sure you're all attending the meetings. These are important. This is a way for everybody to stay on task, be held accountable, so on and so forth. Lastly, just like Kristin said, do the work. Get in there and play around with the software, figure out all the ins and outs, and so on and so forth. And then lastly, I mean, kind of like I said earlier, the top-down messaging, that company messaging, the end goal. I mean, it's very important to make sure that everybody understands that. And it helps keep everybody responsible and as well as, on the ball as far as, staying motivated, staying on task, and just like I said, the top-down messaging and getting to the end goal of what your company needs. So some tips. The company, the general contractor I worked for, we had internal team meetings outside of our implementation meetings. And so that kind of helped with just holding everybody accountable, staying on task. Hey, did you finish this lesson lead training? I really need you to make time to get that done this week. Hey, have you done this, or has anybody gotten these line items in? It just really helped keep everybody on task and stay current with it where we're at with everything. Utilization of a central communication tool, and by that can be something like Procore. If you already have Procore, we all know we can use Procore for, meetings and tasks and scheduling and so on and so forth. So you can use Procore, use Smartsheet. We ended up using Teams. So it just was a way to kind of put different tasks, put different files in there, and share everything, as well as, assign tasks to people as well. Here's my little plug. There was a couple times throughout the process where I was getting frustrated or feeling like we weren't moving fast enough or feeling like I wasn't, doing everything I needed to do. And long story short, I just started thinking, I can't be the only one feeling this way, I think we've all kind of been there. So I reached out, I went on LinkedIn, just started looking at the networks that were out there, some of the networks I've already met. And one of the other things I did, shout out to Gareth, wherever he is, but I started listening to the Pre-Construction podcast, which is sponsored by Beck Technologies. And, there was a lot of people on there that spoke about a couple different things. What I started doing? Hey, I really liked what that guy said. Sent him a LinkedIn request, asked him a couple questions. They responded. It was great. So, again, reach out, utilize your network. I kind of feel like we're all in the same boat. We don't mind not sharing. So, reach out. I feel like everybody that I've reached out to is responsive, respectful, and so on. So, utilize your network. Database maintenance. That was one thing during our process and our implementation process that it kept getting brought up as we're going through all our line items. Well, who's maintaining this once we're done? How are we going to update this? How are we going to do this? How are we going to stay current? Do we need different databases, this, that, and the other? So understanding your putting a plan in place for database maintenance is also another thing to think about, just, when moving forward. Kristin, what are some of the things you want to add?
Identifying super users early on and including them in the process, involving them in weekly meetings and all of the things that you're creating gives them the best chance to be super. Including the experts. So if your company's goal is to create a really useful accounting export, or you're really passionate about historical cost data, involve those people that may not be involved during the entire implementation, but they may be the experts of that thing at your company. Invite them to the meeting, and then account for time for that feedback. Give them time to review and provide thoughtful feedback so that you can incorporate that into your deliverables, and it's the best possible thing for everyone involved. And then lastly, garbage in, garbage out. Implementation is really your time to show up and solve problems that you've experienced really throughout your career, and put a lot of effort into your templates and your database. And so if you spend that time kind of cleaning up what's there and making sure it's useful for you, you really come out of pilot with like a good product that you feel good about using. It solves your problems, and then new users are more likely to adopt it because it's really good information.
Yeah. All right, so this is a big one. Planning for the database and work breakdown structure. So again, I came from a general contractor. We did self-perform of like concrete and some carpentry stuff, but everything else we kind of subcontracted out. Through the years, basically I think it was late 90s, they developed this Excel spreadsheet to do all their estimates and summaries on, and then over the last 20 plus years, it evolved into this highly, macro-enabled, multiple tabs on the bottom Excel spreadsheet, and that's what they were using. So great, but over the course of time, that turned into over 3,000 line items, all of which they still wanted to try to incorporate in moving forward to DESTINI Estimator. So again, that's 3,000 line items that we need to, export, create a new drop-down for, and then go through our WBS properties and tag every single one of those line items out. So there was a period of probably about a month or two, I want to say probably closer to 2 months, where we were meeting every other week for 4 hours at a time, and we were cleaning up those 3,000 line items. Do we really need this anymore? Is this outdated? Or we probably need to add this in because this is a newer thing that's kind of evolved over the last 5 years. So all of that is just things to think about when I keep reiterating on time, the time that it takes to really get this set up and functioning properly. So when it comes to like planning for your WBS, plan for that accordingly, think about things you're gonna need. And again, you've got your industry standards like CSI, master format, uniformat, those are kind of your basics. But then think about company-specific needs, such as, when you create your export, do you need certain accounting codes so that that can get imported into your cost software? Think about, well, we want to make sure that we can sort by bid package so that we can make sure we've got all of their scope items within their bid. So your standard bid package. I mean, you might have building systems like, well, I need to have a breakdown that's very simple. It just says, earthwork, mass grade, building envelope, interiors. However it is your company may or may not be. And this is just examples. I'm sure you guys all out there have a few more. So just again, I'm just going to reiterate time commitment, planning. Again, garbage in, garbage out. So just really think about that. Kristin?
One of the biggest shifts I see from clients coming from other software programs is the need to change to thinking with the end in mind. So the days of kind of putting your headphones on and just cruising through takeoff without a plan, just getting your quantities are, I guess, kind of over. But if you do the upfront work in your database, in your templates, and as you're doing your takeoff, then your estimate is being created for you in the background, and it becomes much more efficient if you put that little bit of pre-work in upfront. And another thing is keeping an open mind about WBS properties. So we've got the hits, we've got CSI, master format, uniformat, but if you keep an open mind with how you can use WBS properties to manipulate data and let them do the heavy lifting for you, you can do some really powerful things with fees and dashboard and analyzing data in different ways. So just encouraging all of you, even if you're well past implementation, to keep an open mind with what WBS properties can be. And again, big emphasis on cleanup. But if your cost database was in a different program before, or even more likely in several programs before, taking a moment to look at the data that was there, maybe required by another program that we no longer require, and letting go of that information. Also, things like having 10 line items, they're just spelled a little bit differently, things like that. This is really your opportunity to clean up some data, and it's less to maintain moving forward. And then one of the most, I think, overwhelming tasks for clients is the line item level of detail that they should be using. And one tip that I have for them is to take a look at 3 to 5 of your most recent estimates that capture the building type that you do most often. And if you're happy with that level of detail and your clients are happy with that level of detail, that's the level of detail that goes into your cost database. There's no need to create more or less if what you've been doing is working. Same goes for costs. If when clients come in and they don't have pre-populated cost databases, it can seem really overwhelming to populate 5,000 line items with costs. If you take a look again at 3 to 5 of your past estimates and just start plugging in those unit costs in your cost database, you may find that 80 to 85% of the line items that you use on every estimate are already pre-populated, and then you can attack the rest of the database after that. Another one is pre-populating formulas. This one is a little bit of upfront effort and a lot of reward in the estimate phase. It makes automatic pricing feel a lot more automatic, and it's really powerful for users who weren't a part of the implementation process, and kind of takes that semi-advanced technique of setting custom formulas out of the equation, and they can just intuitively answer questions to get the quantities that they need.
So now we're going to talk about some tips or best practices after rollout. I think I also heard the term the core group training. So you kind of have your implementation team, and they've kind of gone through the process up to a point. Then you have rollout, and again, my examples through the general contractors, 300 to 400,000 or 400 million a year, 300, 400 million a year. That was the size of our company. We had about 13 people in Precon that were getting trained on this. So again, our core group was about 7 people, and we had to train everybody else. So when I talk about rollout, I'm talking about the rollout training or the core group training of the people that are going to be using it. So again, afterwards, we set up, every Friday at 10, we had weekly touch-base meetings. So once we did the rollout, literally that following Friday, we had our first meeting at 10 a.m. and just hey, all right, you guys have been in there, you played around with it, how's it coming? What questions you got? And I'd spend an hour just literally going through and answering questions and helping guide them, like, this is how you do this, this is how you do this. And again, another thing we did was we assigned everybody an old project, something they worked on in the past year. So that does two things. So that helps establish and start working on your cost history database, because you're getting this old project that, maybe you won, maybe you didn't win. But either way, you're getting an old project in there. That's only going to help you guys in the long run. So think about things like that. So we assign an old project, that's one. And then the other part of the getting the cost history, and that's one. The second part is it forces them to practice. They're also practicing with an estimate whose deadline's already behind them. It's already done. So they don't have that stress and that pressure of a brand new project that they need to learn the software while still trying to meet the deadline so they can get the estimate complete, without getting their head chewed off because they didn't meet a deadline, or a client who was looking for a proposal and you're still 2 weeks behind because you're using new software. So again, an old project, it kind of takes that stress off, and it really helps them to start getting more familiar and practicing and practicing and practicing in the software itself. So I mean, those I would say that was probably one of the most beneficial things that we did. Lastly, I created a rollout schedule. I didn't want the rest of the department to feel like we were just going to, fire hose in the mouth with, this new software, because it's a lot to take in. It's like Kristin said, it's basically learning 2.5 programs. So again, create a rollout schedule to let them know, here's what we're going to be doing. The first 6 weeks, we expect you to get this old project entered while still doing your full-time job. And just kind of giving them a guideline saying, here's the next step after that, here's the next step after that. And then we're hoping that after 6 months or 7 months or 8 months, we're fully utilizing DESTINI Estimator. So just some of the tips that I can give, maybe help you guys through your process. Kristin?
Beck Tech has several resources for companies after rollout. One is Lessonly, and if it's been a while since you've been in implementation, you probably haven't revisited Lessonly in a while, but our team's been very active in creating modules based on customer feedback and implementation specialist feedback on what clients may need. So I encourage everyone, if you're looking to explore a new topic or you are maybe a little bit rusty on a topic, to go back into Lessonly and scroll down and see all of the new modules available. Exploring the Help Center. If you need help, like a step-by-step tutorial on a targeted subject, the Help Center is a great place to look to find that how-to and get the quick answers you're looking for. And lastly, and probably most importantly, is engage with your customer success rep. They're your best resource to become as super of a user as you want to be. And the way to utilize them the best is to come prepared with topics that you want to discuss, and it may be several questions that your team has come up with over some time, or it may be a really targeted topic. You want to spend some time diving deep into dashboards and creating a new dashboard sheet, or you've got a complicated project coming up that you never even thought of while you were in implementation and you need some help setting that up. They're really your best resource on how to get to the next level after implementation.
So I think you can go to the next slide, but I'm pretty certain that that's all we really wanted to cover. One thing I could add on the last, after rollout, we did a couple different additional pilot projects, or as I said, taking old projects that everybody worked on. So we did it to where, we had people that did multifamily, and multiple estimators worked on multifamily. And so we had them going in and putting in an old project and seeing the pros and cons and seeing how this worked. If they changed this, did it change over here in his? And so we kind of set it up to where everybody was doing a little bit of everything, and really exposing, getting used to and familiarized with all the different aspects that DESTINI Estimator can do for you. So again, and any questions for us? Is there going to be a mic going around? I see a couple hands up. Okay. We got someone right there with the microphone.
I actually have two questions.
Okay.
With regards to the data manager, did you assign a single person that they are totally in control of data manager? Did you allow access to multiple people so lots of people could work in it?
Okay, I'll answer that. So we had 2 people that had access, 3 people that had access to data manager to go in and be able to make any changes. When it came to helping to build out that list, updating our 3,000 plus line items, that was actually, we did bring in part of the rest of the department to assist us with that. And mostly what they did was they just helped us kind of clean up the line items while the team then worked on the individual WBSs for all those line items. But we did reach out just because that was such a heavy lift.
And how are you dealing with continued maintenance of your database of data manager?
So I no
single
longer work
person
for
or
that
multiple?
company, and I left shortly. I left a couple months after the rollout. So I know that part of the plan was it was going to be one of the things that me and the other super user ended up doing was just, maybe we have quarterly meetings and update it after that. I know that was the plan. So, but I think that's the best I can answer that question.
Question 2 was, you mentioned alternate use of the WBS properties, accounting codes being one possible use. Did you have other things in mind, other examples?
Yeah, so if you need to have fees that are just on certain items, like say you have a fee, but it can't be on Division 1 stuff, or it's a bad example because you already have a code. But there are some items where you only want the fee to be applied to those line items. You can create a WBS property specific to where you want that fee to apply, and use that WBS property. Another one is highlight rules. You can create WBS properties. I had a group that had like a circle back WBS property, which is like a very informal use of a WBS property. And so if there's any note in that circle back column, it would highlight so that you knew to circle back and get to that line item. And then dashboard. Dashboard is largely set up on rules. And so if you can't create the data that you want based on the rules that exist, WBS properties are your best shot to collect data and organize data in a way that you want to generate a rule in the dashboard.
So when you, right here, when you had the junior estimator or whoever was given a back project, did you have them implement all of the information into Destiny and then do a manual takeoff in the whole bit, or were they just inputting the information from the past history of the estimate?
What we did was put the drawings in, because that's part of using Destiny. So put the drawings in. Don't feel like you need to take off everything, but take off what you can. Because again, this is a historical project. It's already been bid. So our thought was, put in the old project, take off a few items so that you can start getting comfortable with the takeoff tool. Otherwise, then just go through and start bringing over your database items. So that was what we did. We didn't want people to spend hours doing an old project. We wanted to get the familiarity with the estimating software itself. Does it? Because you have your hosted data environment. That's what I'm talking about, was the, go here, click this, bring it in, double click it, start getting your items in. That was kind of more what I was talking about there. All right, thank you guys so much.
Thank you, everyone.
I'll see you all at happy hour.